Now let's go on to the other kind of loop that we're going to learn about today. These are called while loops. Let me set the stage here for why we need these while loops by asking you to make a guessing game. Now, this silly game where it's going to be some secret word. And here I've chosen the secret word bears. And then we're going to have our users give some input, which is a guess here. Guess equals input. We're going to compare their guess to the secret word, and if they got it right, we'll print you got it, and we'll break. And by the way, what does this break statement do? It will exit our for loop early. So it means we won't execute any more of the body for this iteration or any other iterations if there are any left. And otherwise, we print that's not right. So before for loops, by the way, you would have no way of doing this. You could only take a single guess from the user, or you could copy this whole block, multiple times and take multiple guesses from the user, but you have to copy the body every time. Now that we have these for loops, we can say, okay, we know how many times we want to take input from the user. And if the user gets the guess wrong, by the way, which is very likely, it's hard to just guess a random word, we print that's not right, try again. Okay, but isn't it kind of hard to guess this word? So if I take this code and I put it into my REPL and I run this, okay, I'm gonna scroll down. Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes and I don't know, type some random characters, and I'm gonna scroll down. If I try running this code, so I can't see what this is. Enter guess word. Okay, did I type this? No, that's not right. Okay, I'll type this. No. None of these are working. Okay, well the program just ends. So what was my actual, okay, these were the characters I typed that I was trying to guess. It's a really hard game. 5 guesses isn't enough. Okay, maybe 10 guesses will be enough. Okay, we could do that. But if I were to run this again, you'd probably see 10 guesses won't be enough either. How do I make sure that I am giving enough guesses that anyone can get it? Okay, make it 20. Maybe you can see where I'm going with this. None of these options are really valid options because you never know how many guesses the user will need. Actually, what you want to do is you want to keep repeating until the user guesses correctly, and then we stop. Or in other words, a leading way of me to describe this would be we want to keep repeating while the answer that the user gives us is incorrect. So this is where while loops come in. While loops are a way for us to loop over some body of code while a condition is true. And so our while loop here is a bit simpler than our for loop. It just has this, it just has this while reserved keyword and then space and an expression, very similar to a conditional if, where we had if space expression. But here what happens is the expression will get checked, and then we have the colon and the body. Again, as with for loops and as with conditionals, the body is made up of anything that's indented immediately after the while statement here. Everything in the body will get executed, and then this expression will get checked again. It'll get reevaluated. And every time it gets evaluated, as long as it's true, the body will get executed again. As soon as this expression evaluates to false, then we no longer execute the body and we go on to the next lines of code. So back to our game. What would it look like if we used this while statement? Well, we can take a guess from our user, and then while our guess is not equal to the secret word, we're just going to keep asking the user to guess again. Over and over and over, whether it's 10 times or 20 or 100 or 1,000 times, we'll keep taking input until the guess is equal to the secret word. So until guess.lower not equal to secret word is false. So to kind of summarize here, these while loops, they're letting us repeat based on some condition. Now, before I talk about next slide there, I want to show, look at this example together in Replit. So this code, okay, here I know the secret word, but imagine I didn't. Said, okay, car, door, TV. No matter how many guesses I make, it'll keep looping over the body of this while loop until I type bears, at which point this expression is no longer true. So now my guess is equal to the secret word, and so we exit the loop and we print you got it. You might be wondering, okay, well, what other scenarios are there in which the value of an expression changes? Another common thing you could do is where you have some variable like a counter. Say our counter starts from 10, and while our counter is greater than 0, we're going to print something out. Print the counter value. And then afterwards we can print, you're done. Can you guess at home as you're watching along what this will do? So take a minute to pause this video and guess. So you might have noticed I actually have a mistake here. If you're paying really close attention, what will this do? While counter is greater than 0, print counter. What happens next? The body gets executed. We go back. We check the condition. The counter is still greater than 0. So we print counter. We go again and again and again. Does counter ever change value? No. So that should be a hint for you that something's wrong here, because counter will always be greater than 0. So if I run this code, you'll see that Python will just freak out and keep printing 10 over and over and over because I never updated the value of counter. And this is a good chance for me to jump a couple slides ahead. Help. What do I do if I'm stuck in an infinite loop? So if you're in Python and you get stuck in an infinite loop like I just did here, because this is just going to keep printing 10 forever, in terminal, the way to stop your code is to press Control-D on your keyboard. Or on Windows, I believe it's Control-Z. You can try either. Whoops. Sorry, Control-C for this infinite loop here. Let's just correct that. Do this on the fly during lecture. Control, let's see, text, background. Oops. There we go. Good as new. So Control-C. And Control-C is a keyboard interrupt. So if I run this again, Control-C on my keyboard breaks out of the loop. So how do we fix this code? Well, if we update our counter to be counter -1, then on each iteration of our loop, the counter will get 1 smaller. So if I run this again, you see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 gets printed. After the counter has a value of 1, we print 1. Counter gets set to counter -1, so counter gets set to 0. And our condition gets reevaluated. And at this point, counter is equal to 0, so it's not greater than 0. And so our body doesn't get executed and 0 doesn't get printed. And you might notice this is actually super similar to what you could do with a for loop. For I in range, starting from 10, going down to 0, taking steps of size -1. Print I. If I run this, we get the same exact output. And so you can actually use while loops to implement for loops. They're very similar. For loops are just an easier conceptual representation, and they let you use sequences other than just ranges. So a for loop with a range can also be implemented with a while loop. Now going back up here, there's one other thing I want to show you with these while loops, which is infinite loops. And so you can use an infinite loop for a lot of different games. Just like I had here, like while counter greater than 0, when I didn't have this counter equals counter -1 line, I effectively had a statement that said, while true, keep doing something. I'm running an infinite loop. This true will never evaluate to false because it is by definition just true. So if I run this code, it'll just keep printing over and over. I'm running an infinite loop. And so I hit Control C to break out of this. And so this is useful for times when you want to keep looping over and over. Let's say counter equals 0 plus equals counter plus 1. If counter is equal to 10, then I'm going to break. So you can use a infinite loop while true combined with a break statement to keep repeating something until some condition is met inside. This would be the same thing as if you just said while counter is not equal to 10. This would do the same thing, but I'm just showing you another way of having it kind of a loop that goes on forever and then breaks at some point, some specified condition that you want. And so really, I should be a little more specific here. I'm writing a non-infinite loop. And let's just print our counter for good measure. So here we go, and we'll run our code. Yes, non-infinite loop 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And finally, we print out that 9. Counter goes up by 1, so it's 10. And now if counter is equal to 10, we break. You might ask, like, hey, when are these infinite loops useful? It's useful when you want to repeat kind of infinitely. Just keep taking input over and over. Kind of maybe one good example is if you remember these calculators from high school. How do they work? Well, you type in some problem, you hit enter, they give you an answer, but they never shut down. I mean, they're always ready to answer more questions for you. So 8 plus 2, okay, 10, so on and so forth. So that's a kind of an example of an infinite loop where it's just always forever waiting for an input from you. Until you kind of take out the batteries, this thing is just always taking input. Okay, so with that, we are done for the day, and I will see you in class. Please bring your questions, and we'll have some problems to apply these concepts in class on Wednesday. See you. Bye.